Hey everyone, it's Lesley here from Hungry Happy Crafts, and I have a card to share with you guys today. This one features some cute little mice from Gerda Steiner Designs, and I also have lots of copic colouring as well. So I'm starting off with two cardstock panels, which I've cut out of smooth white cardstock using a Mama Elephant all prettied up die. And I've grabbed my distressings in dried marigold, picked raspberry, and wilted violet, I think is the last one. And I'm just blending these back and forth. It took me a while because I like to go with a light hand on some smooth white cardstock. It's until I had this, it almost looks like a fruit salad. Any UK guys would know what that is. It's a candy that we have here in the UK. And then I spritzed it with some water and blotted off the wee pools of water. Next up, I'm stamping my images, and I'm going to stamp 5 of these super cute little mice. This is from the Fall Mice stamp set from Gerda Steiner Designs. And there's also this sweet little heart, which fits pretty much perfectly in his paws. So I wanted each of my mice to have a heart. I'm going to be using copic markers today to colour in these cute little mice. And I want all of them to be slightly different. A friend of mine that I used to work with, Elena, she had fancy rats, and I loved going over and playing with the little rats. And we can't have cats and dogs in our house because my daughter is allergic to them. And I really wanted a pair of rats, some rats, and I would keep them in the craft room. But it turns out that the temperature fluctuates quite a bit in my craft room, and rats, they don't cope well with that. So no rats for me, unfortunately. But these cute little guys, I can have some fall mice instead in my craft room. So I think that's really what inspired this card. And I'm colouring this first little guy with some warm grey tones, adding some shadows in the little nooks and crannies and on the inside of his tail and around the edge of the heart. And I'm trying to blend out his face into white using the colourless blender. In fact, I put too much of the colourless blender in, so I do come in a little bit later on and flatten that out with a bit more colour. But sometimes when there's a bit too much ink on there, you have to let it dry and then come back in and give it another layer. I've added some pink to his ears and to his little cheeks, and then I moved on to my next mouse. This one is a lighter brown colour, as you can see, and even though I wanted all my mice to be different in colour, I did double up on some of the colours. It's just that I made the combinations a bit different so they all look different. And that's one of the things I really like about my copic markers, is that you can get a lot of mileage, a lot of different colours using even just a small selection of colours. So each of my mice, I'm colouring these guys in and adding a little bit of pink to the ears and cheeks. And then of course adding some colour, some dark brown colour to their cute little button noses. I almost forgot about this little guy's paws, so just at the last minute I added that in. I'm only going to show you this last mouse here because they're all pretty much the same style, but I wanted this one to be much darker. So I started with my shadows and then worked my way back into some of the lighter tones. And sometimes it's hard not to go too dark with my copic markers, which is why in this instance I started with my shadows and worked my way to lighter, because I could make it really light in the center if I wanted to. So once I had these little guys all coloured in, I fussy cut them all out using my scissors, but I do think that Gerda has some dies in the shop. Then I moved over to adding a little bit of texture to my background. I'm using my embossing paste, it's just some white embossing paste. and I'm actually going to jazz it up a little with some glitter. This is Glamour Dust, and I have had this for years. It's a super fine glitter, and I'm just mixing that into my paste and then spreading it over my mask. The Glamour Dust is so fine and it doesn't really create huge lumps and bumps in the embossing paste. Every time I add it on a card, everyone always oohs and ahs over it. It's very similar to the Nouveau glitter that's on the market right now. So it works really well when I add it to the embossing paste. I'm doing both these panels just so I can use one for a future project, and while they're drying I will of course clean off my mask. I've picked out a die that says Sending. This is a Simon Says stamp die, and I've cut that out of a couple of pieces of scratch cardstock, just normal white cardstock, and I'm using a glue pen to stack a couple of layers on top of one another. And one of these Sending die cuts I have cut out of a piece of card that I inked up with similar colours and layered that on top, so it now looks like chipboard really. I'm adding my sentiment. I'm stamping the word love. This is from a Personal Impressions stamp set, and I used just a pinky purpley tone to add that to the bottom, and that will work really well with my die cut. I almost forgot to colour in the hearts of these little guys, so I laid out my project and I tried to mimic the colours that are on the blended background. I also tried to make sure that the dark mouse really had light coloured hearts, and then the lighter mice has sort of darker coloured hearts. And this one was the trickiest, the pink to purple, and I used the tip to tip technique to try and blend those two colours together. I think it turned out quite well. So now that my top panel is dry, I can adhere it onto that bottom section, and I wonder if you can see the sparkle. It's just really pretty. I'll use some multi-medium in the matte finish to add my Sending die cut onto this card here. And I have added glue dots to all of my mice. The darkest one's going to go right in the middle because he's the most unique, I think. And then I'll add the mice or the mouse on the far right, and that way I can make sure that all of my mice are pretty much evenly distributed over my card. I want to add a layer of glossy accents to each of these cute little hearts, and I'll use a pin just to pop any bubbles and to help me move around the glossy accent so it gets up to the edges. All I needed to do then is to mount this whole panel onto a piece of folded craft cardstock. Thank you so much for watching this video. Here's some more videos that you may like. If you haven't already, please subscribe to make sure that you don't miss any of my other videos as soon as they're released. You can also leave me a like and a comment down here, and don't forget to follow me on social media @HungryHeffy. I'll see you there. Have a great day and happy crafting. Bye!